Warning, the following video contains opinions that are mine and not anyone else's. All viewers of Banditex are encouraged to form their own opinion and to not follow mine directly. Yes, we're doing another Nicktoons video game. I understand that this may be fatiguing for some. I mean, I just did SpongeBob and Ren and Stimpy, but I really needed an excuse to play this one. If you are upset by this 3-review combo of Nickelodeon games, I will do something unrelated to this brand next. I promise. So what exactly is the Rugrats? For the uninformed, this was one of the first 3 Nicktoons that premiered alongside Doug and the Ren and Stimpy show. The cartoon was about a group of babies who went on adventures using their imaginations. The series was a great mix of adventure, comedy, and slice of life. You had the babies, Tommy, Chucky, Phil, and Lil, and Tommy's older cousin and bully, Angelica, who all lacked a proper understanding of the world around them. Then you had the adult characters who often neglected the kids as they had other things to prioritize. Their stories were more mundane than the babies, but they made up for it by just being funny. Before SpongeBob came around, this was Nickelodeon's most popular cartoon. It had 9 seasons, a couple of direct-to-DVD specials, 3 films, 2 spin-off shows, and recently got a CG reboot on Paramount+. This cartoon was great. I may prefer SpongeBob like everyone else, but Rugrats was amazing for what it was, and it even tackled certain subjects like Judaism very well. If you haven't seen the original show, please do. I thought it was just a generic comedy at first, but I promise, it's so much more than that. There is a reason I wanted to do Search for Reptar. Actually, multiple. For starters, I had vague memories watching others play this game right in front of me when I was very young, specifically the Ice Cream Mountain stage. I was only a few days old when this game was released, so I know for a fact I didn't get to play it myself. Many years later, I think when I was in high school, I stumbled upon this disc one day inside of a gross old Batman lunchbox. This had many PS1 games stuffed inside, most of which didn't even work anymore. But I wanted to replace this one at some point in my life. During the production of the Legend of the Lost Spatula video, a coworker stumbled upon a large surplus of PS1 games over at a pawn shop and begged me to have a look at them. There were tons of Tomb Raider games. In fact, I think they had every PS1 Tomb Raider game. I saw Search for Reptar at the very bottom of the stack, and at that point in time, I just knew it was finally time to replace that game. Now I know what you're thinking, oh, you could have gotten Tomb Raider, you don't have Tomb Raider, do you? Well, I don't have Tomb Raider, but I'm not interested in Tomb Raider. I have like 400 other games to play, so Tomb Raider's not a priority. So now that I'm in my 20s and not a dumb baby, why not give Search for Reptar a spin? I mean, how bad could it be? Search for Reptar was developed by N-Space and published by THQ. Search for Reptar was notable for having the second biggest marketing push for video games in 1998, losing only to The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Ads were all over the place, demos were handed out. If you can think of a way to advertise a game, THQ probably did it. The game was a pretty big hit in terms of sales, managing to land a greatest hits label, likely due to a combination of the strong marketing and the brand recognition. As for the critical reception, it was mixed, but that didn't matter to the kids, because they could finally take control of Tommy Pickles and his gang of babies doing baby things like playing hide-and-go-seek. The game begins with a recreation of the show's opening, though done in the game's engine using all assets from the game. While some may find this awkward and maybe cringe, I personally would like to see more of these in video games based on cartoons. After all, the intro is what you see every time you start watching the show, so having a video game begin in a similar fashion helps sell the illusion that you're watching the cartoon. I think the only other game that did this was South Park, which came out the same year on N64, and I liked it there as well. It's one thing to directly use the theme song, do a cover of that, or just flat out plopping the opening sequence into the game, but this take shows that the developers cared to put just a little more effort in. The story in Search for Reptar sees Tommy getting ready to show his friends his new 12-piece Reptar puzzle. Unfortunately for the babies, all but one of the puzzle pieces are missing.
Either a lot of the puzzle pieces are missing, or it's the easiest puzzle ever.
Tommy then makes it his mission to locate every piece and find Reptar. In order to find the puzzle pieces, you'll have to complete various levels. The Pickles household is your main hub where you will run around to find each level. The house is completely empty, with Tommy being the only one in the entire house and the dog Spike being in the backyard. Stu, Dee Dee, Lou, where the hell are you guys? What's even stranger is that the adults and other babies will poof into existence once you select a level, so I guess we don't have to contact CPS after all. But we should probably have them on speed dial.
I've lost control of my life.
While the Pickles house isn't the coolest hub world in a video game, Peach's castle in Super Mario 64 was better. This place rules just for being a well-made recreation of the main setting of the cartoon. The house really feels like an actual location anybody can go into and explore. Throughout the house are items that Tommy can interact with. Doing so will start a level. There are a total of 13 regular levels in the game, and clearing one will give you a puzzle piece or a set of Reptar bars. But more on those later. Since you have a 12-piece puzzle to complete, and you have a piece at the start, that means you don't really need to play every level. Each stage has its own listed difficulty, and while you're allowed to choose whatever level you want, the hard levels cannot be played until you've cleared 3 easy or medium levels first. The controls in this game aren't very good. Tommy runs at a pretty fast speed, which is good for exploring the house, but not so much when you're in actual level platforming. Another problem is that if Tommy touches a wall, he'll come to an immediate halt. Some things like trees will even damage Tommy, and because of the fast movement, it's easy to take damage this way. Tommy also comes to a dead stop when landing from a jump or just coming down from a curb, as if he's Sora from Kingdom Hearts or something. The jumps are also on the heavy side. It feels like N-Space wanted to incorporate realistic jumps into this game, but you can still adjust your jumps slightly while in the air. I won't be too hard on the controls, as while I do think they're poor, the game rarely asks you to do any difficult platforming. There is a training option that will guide you through the basics, but the levels themselves are pretty forgiving overall. If you decide to play this game and you value your life, do not push L2 or R2 while running. The first time I did this, I thought something was wrong, like the camera was going to start swerving out of control. As it turns out, pressing these will move the camera either left or right, but only for a little bit. You know, in case you wanted to see something slightly off screen. If your angle sucks, then you can hit R1 to center the camera behind you, though if you're too close to a wall, then it'll just point at your face. So how about the levels themselves? Well, here's the problem. Search for Reptar doesn't exactly have a key style. Each level is something different, so you never quite know what you're getting into. One level could be set in a spaceship, another is a race in the house with Angelica, or even a simplistic miniature golf game. The most common variant is the platforming, which, as stated prior, is easy. You will traverse through grocery stores or mazes in a linear fashion, exploring the house upside down grabbing balloons, or battling shadows at night. There are instances where you can control the other babies like Chucky, Angelica, or even Spike the dog, but everyone controls exactly the same. I think Spike can jump higher, but the biggest difference is his size, which means you'll get stuck more. The game doesn't have a lot of enemies either, and your options for self-defense are very limited, since all you can do is throw items. The throwing itself kind of sucks, since it's hard to aim your shots. Some levels will give you a ranged weapon like a flashlight or a remote, and these work better, but these are only in 2 levels. I think it's best to look at the game as a mini-game compilation rather than a 3D platformer if you ask me. I do like that the game has a lot of variety, and how it can keep you guessing on what you'll be doing each stage. I mean, with a level like Grandpa's Teeth, what do you expect? But everything itself is kind of dull. Dull is probably the best word to describe the whole experience. Since the game was made for kids, the game was made easy on purpose. In that sense, I guess it works well. I did bash a Ren and Stimpy game for being too hard recently, but I don't find casually playing Search for Reptar fun and engaging. The game can get mildly annoying at points, since some things are a bit unclear. I hated the Circus Angelica stage because I couldn't figure out the catapulting Chucky segment. I found myself failing this multiple times, getting annoyed, and having to look up a guide telling me what to do. The mysterious Mr. Friend was also annoying, since they want you to perform a kick move to beat Mr. Friend, but it doesn't seem to work as it should. You're told to hold triangle and then hit X when Mr. Friend grabs you, but holding the triangle button instead works much better, even if your cry meter drains pretty quickly. Oh yeah, the cry meter. I didn't talk about that yet. The cry meter is your health bar. Once it's gone, your character will cry in a dark void, indicating that you have failed. Cookies or dog bones in Spike's case will refill the meter, and these things are abundant, so you shouldn't see this screen very often. I think I only had this happen 3 times across my 2 playthroughs. I guarantee you though, at least one of these instances was caused by one of these fucking jerks. Where Search for Reptar may shine is in the speedrunning potential. Since the game allows you to select levels in any order, there isn't a strict way to play this game. The game will also reward players for collecting 15 Reptar bars by giving them a puzzle piece. I'm convinced they chose the number 15 as a nod to Lou's obsession with that same number. Reptar bars are scattered all over the house and in every level. The game also has a few bonus levels that will pop up after a while. If you win, you will get a few. If you fail enough times, then you won't get another chance. But since your reward is just more Reptar bars, failing isn't a big deal. This means that you don't need to play every single level in the game, which is great if you find a level you hated like I did. You don't get a reward for finishing every stage anyway, so who cares if you don't finish the Ice Cream Mountain level? Just play something else instead. On one hand, this makes the game appealing to those that just want to finish it, but the completionists end up being left out as a result. If you want to play Search for Reptar, I recommend not putting any puzzle pieces into place until you finish every level. That way you get to play everything and sink more playtime into this one. Once you complete the puzzle, you're forced into level 14, Reptar 2010. This is just another linear level where you have to get to City Hall. Aside from the joy of destroying the developers and publishers of the game, and some quips from the news reporter, the level is just another drop of water in the bucket. Seeing Reptar do a silly dance in a top hat in the end was kinda funny, but the dance itself kind of drags on longer than it should have. Once the credits roll, the game resets. Tommy is back at the very start to repeat the entire game again. The whole adventure isn't very long, it should take you about 3 hours to finish the game. I'm surprised they gave you 15 save files though. That's how many blocks they give you for one PS1 memory card, so seeing all that space scared me into thinking Search for Reptar wiped my memory card clean. One thing to note is that there is an activities mode, which just lets you play a few side levels and bonus stages. This also has a hidden multiplayer mode tucked away where you can play the Ice Cream Mountain stage with up to 4 players. Susie Carmichael is also available as an extra character, though she's completely silent, and again, she plays exactly the same as everyone else. It is odd that this is the one time you'll see her in the whole game though. While I didn't have a lot of fun playing Search for Reptar, I can at least praise the presentation. The voice actors from the show return to reprise their roles and record new dialogue. Angelica sounds just as bratty, Tommy and Chucky are just as adorable, and the Pickles adults are just as funny as they always are.
Come on, Pop, that's not news. Those tabloids make all that up.
They tell the truth. Your real news doesn't dare.
Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl released in 2021 and couldn't even get voice acting into it, so it's nice to see this game from 1998 bring everyone in. The music was made by the same guy who did the music in the show, and aside from it being a perfect fit to the source material, it's also just good music in general. As for the graphics, this is somewhat hard to grade. Rugrats and the rest of the cartoons that the animation studio Klasky Csupo worked on were ugly and unappealing. I do like the art style of their cartoons, even if it feels a bit samey and crummy. I can give points to the game for faithfully adapting the cartoon into the third dimension. I do wish more characters were in though. I was disappointed to learn that Drew Pickles was nowhere to be seen, though this Perpy Pop guy looks like him, I guess. Back on track with the visuals, the colors and texture work also carry that Rugrats vibe as well. The game does struggle at times with the frame rate. The Pyramid and Ice Cream Mountain in particular runs like shit, but in general the game feels like it's struggling to run, and it can even be noticed on old CRT. In fact, the bad frame rate was the first thing I noticed once I tested this game. So, what is the verdict on Search for Reptar? Well, I know there are a lot of people nostalgic for this, myself included in a way, but in terms of being a video game, Search for Reptar is a bit of a bust. I can't think of another game more deserving of a middling score than this one. Rugrats Search for Reptar on the PS1 gets a 5.5 out of 10. The highs in Search for Reptar are mainly linked to the cartoon it's based on, while the flaws are all mostly gameplay related. At the same time, the whole game isn't bad, it's just mediocre. If you're a fan of the original show and you own a console that can play PS1 games, then go ahead and give Search for Reptar a spin. Everyone else though, I think you can skip this one. This is a video game made for Rugrats fans, and nobody else. Now, if you'll excuse me, this game made me really want to watch the cartoon, so I'm gonna go do that. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Banditex. I'll catch you in the next one.